Hi there. Let's start with shampeachment, more shampeachment. I was listening to Scott Adams the other day, and actually it was episode 760, one of his particularly good ones in my view. He said that, and I guess I'd been thinking this, but I hadn't articulated it, that the meaning of impeachment has changed. This whole episode, I think the Democrats wanted to show that Trump was impeached. Now, I'm not addressing the issue about whether it's sent over to the Senate. I don't really think that's important. I just think it's kind of meaningless. And the less meaning we give to it, the better. I had a kind of a Democratic friend say to me, "Oh, are you concerned about the impeachment hearings?" I said, "No, there's no way I'm watching that." What a joke. What a joke. So, I think even in polls, impeachment for many people was equivalent, if you were in favor of impeachment, because some people I would otherwise think of as pretty intelligent, it's stunning. Yeah, let's impeach him. I don't like him. Like, what? That's not what impeachment is about. So let's just not worry about it. I don't think we are worried about it. We can be mad about it. We should be. We absolutely have to get a majority. The Republicans have to get a majority in the House. Because if we don't, Trump's second term is not going to be good. Is going to be saddled with all of these investigations, whatever. We don't need that. So please, 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 everybody, we're all going to get out to vote, at least everybody listening to this video will. But do not, I don't care how nice the individual is, how good they are, how much you like them. This is a team game now. It's not about the individual. You can't just say, I like this particular person. I mean, look at all the formerly fine Democrats, people I admired and liked. It's shocking how they all voted to impeach the president in the House, except the one guy who changed. I'm surprised more didn't change, but he changed to a Republican. So well, it was the same thing with the Kavanaugh hearings. Oh my God. I made a video about this, many of you know. The Kavanaugh hearings, I couldn't believe that these otherwise fine people could really think that Christine Blasey Ford her charges had merit. It was shocking. So I try to take an optimistic view. One of the things I'm pleased about, or in retrospect is seen as a good thing, is that my years of looking at the whole climate change issue, it was shocking to me that scientists that I thought were good, that science as an institution I thought was pretty good. And to see how politicized it became was one eye-opening experience after another. So let's look at this in a positive light. I'm convinced now, not only will Trump, he's going to win a huge, huge electoral college victory. I mean, I'm thinking about the late 70s. I remember you didn't want to say you were a liberal. Excuse me, I'm thinking of more the 80s than the late 70s. In the 80s, it got to be where liberal was kind of like a word you didn't want to use. And I think that's why the Democrats switched over later to progressive, which is really, they're regressive. It's not progressive. I mean, you had Walter Mondale running in '84. You had George Dukakis in 1988. But then Bill Clinton came along in 1992. And he was a different kind of Democrat. I now see flaws in his policy positions on some issues, but he's far, far and away better. And Dianne Feinstein was that. I supported her campaign when she ran for governor and then for the Senate. So the party moved more toward the middle, toward like good solutions for things. But now they've gone the other direction. And so I think they're going to be a minority party for years. Fortunately, they have no charismatic leader. I now see, when I look back at President Obama, whom I voted for twice, he was much more skilled as a politician. He was doing a lot of bad stuff, but he didn't tell us. Now, I know many of you out there knew about this, but I didn't. And so I didn't really understand the damage he was doing until later in his second term. So let's have fun with this. Let's be strong. Let's not be afraid. When I say afraid, we're on the right side of history here. And it's also happening that way in Europe and other places. Now, I'd like to say a word about John Brennan, CIA director under Obama. I didn't mention this before. Kind of wish I would have, because now it's clear that Durham is investigating him. But when I knew a long time ago, I mean, they're clear. People give themselves away. I was shocked when I heard him on television basically saying that Donald Trump was a traitor. Now, I know there's talk about how he's lied and this and that. So I'm going to address a different aspect here, not just about the lies. What I want to say is, I thought to myself, how is it that there are CIA director, and by the way, this can be said for Comey as well, as the FBI director, a CIA director at the top of our intelligence agencies, at top intelligence, had such bias. And I'm not just saying about the unfairness of it, because that's another issue. But if you have that kind of bias, how can you possibly evaluate intelligence? How can you do that? Okay, it's like in the late 80s when people were, when I say people, the defense establishment was skeptical of Gorbachev, who was definitely a different Soviet leader, with his perestroika and openness. And by the way, I took 2 trips to the Soviet Union in 1988 and 1989. Went all over the place. It was incredible. That was when I was studying at Claremont Graduate University, and I did a lot of Soviet studies and defense studies and things like that. But anyway, I remember Nathaniel Davis, whom I would probably consider more of a classical liberal. He was my professor, former ambassador to Chile, by the way, who resigned. He resigned in protest. I think it was the Nixon administration. But anyway, a brilliant man, now passed on. But I remember he said to me that a lot of the end of the Cold War was due to Ronald Reagan. Because I, didn't like Ronald Reagan at the time. And he said he was the only one who could see it differently. Well, isn't that a lot of what Donald Trump is doing today. He's seeing things differently, which is an important trait if you're smart, which he is. Okay, so here's what I want to say something else that's been bothering me a long time, and something I've grown to see that has led to my transition from being a Democrat to a Republican. And this really hit me during the whole climate change issue when I was looking into it. When I would see that Jerry Brown, our governor at the time, we now have pretty boy Gavin Newsom, who's equally as bad. But one of the things that bothered me about Jerry Brown as governor is it was like he was glad to be governor of California so that he could travel to these international conferences and brag about what California was doing on the issues of climate change, kind of ignoring about the effect of those policies on Californians. It wasn't like he really cared about California. What he cared about was that he had a platform. And I got the same sense with Obama, particularly in his second term. I didn't really notice that in the first term, but at the second term, he liked being president. Okay, I'm mind reading, as Scott Adams would say. But his actions certainly did this. It was as if he liked being president of the United States, not because he cared about the United States, but because imagine the platform that gave him on the world stage. And then what really just bothered me to no end was when he apologized at the Paris, when he was in Paris for the Paris Climate Accords, which he signed without, like it was a treaty. He knew the Senate wouldn't pass it. But he apologized for the U.S. for our climate, our CO2 emissions. And I thought to myself, how dare you? The U.S. has been a beacon of hope to the world. We've done so much for the world, not only in terms of freedom and the example of our Constitution, and how we've helped everybody in the world, but also, it's not to say we don't make mistakes, but they're minor compared to the positives. But also, we're the country of technological advance, of industry. People want to come here. People want to have jobs. People want to start companies. Look at what we've done. And you are apologizing for that? I was trying to explain when some woman who just became a citizen, she's from India, and I thought it was a friendly question. She said, Deborah, why do you support Trump? And I told her how I didn't like how he apologized for the U.S. And she said to me, well, he should apologize. Well, that stopped that conversation. And then she became a citizen. Wow. It's not the immigrants of old, but she's in Silicon Valley. So anyway, I still see that happening. Like pretty boy Newsom said, I just heard on the news this morning, California's great. It's doing, it's booming economy and stuff like that. And it is true that California is great. I love this state. It's my state. But he's kind of riding on past successes, and he's ignoring problems that are building up. Having said that, I've got to remind myself that, for me anyway, and for many of us, those of you who don't live in California, you might just hear all the bad stuff, and it's there. I'm not going to deny it's there. But it doesn't affect everyone, and it's not uniform. there's still some really, really beautiful things. You know, every Friday I go to the beach, and it's just beautiful. And actually Santa Monica, a little communist Santa Monica, because they get a lot of tourists and businesses, they've really made it nice. So we had, because Venice Beach to the south, they have a real bad homeless problem. And I saw that on, I think it was on Laura Ingram's show. I mean, it's just, holy moly. But Santa Monica's better. So I went to do the traveling rings, you know, and one of the women there, Devin, I really like her. She has all the phone numbers of all the people and stuff, who to call, the police or whatever, Santa Monica authorities. There were like 2 homeless people right there, you know, where I sit on the ledge and put my gloves on. And it was like, and they had trash, and I was like, whoa, whoa, and they were sleeping. You know, I'm thinking, should I pour my water on them? But, you know, I'm too nice. But anyway, they were gone. Devin called the Santa Monica authorities, and the reason is, I think, is for business. Because, you know, when I go to the beach, I would say half the people I meet are from out of town. And then people from all over the world, they love that beach. It's the old Muscle Beach. It's just south of the Santa Monica Pier. And they really do a good job. So I'm very happy about Santa Monica, which is technically where I live, but not really. This area here is Pacific Palisades. It's bizarre. It's just I vote in LA elections, not Santa Monica elections. But that's in it. So one of the things I want to do here, and thanks to Martin Whalen, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, he made a comment and he said, I like to listen to your videos because you help me find new ways to present my point of view. And I'm really glad he brought that up, because I want to give people tools as to how do we navigate, because when there's this Trump derangement syndrome out there, how do we handle it? And if you have any ideas or experiences that you've had, please comment. And I love the comments, by the way. I really like my core audience. I mean, you people are so smart. I just, I don't answer right away. I like to read the comment and let it percolate in my mind, my response. Because if I answer too quickly, I don't think I do it justice. So I end up reading the comments more than once. And you all, and maybe that's why you like my videos, you all are deep thinkers. And I love it. I love creating this kind of community. Each and every one of you, I wish I could just sit across the table and chat with you. You're fantastic. So thank you. I mean, really, thank you. And oh my gosh, please know in my response, I never, ever, 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 ever mean to offend you. I have a certain way of talking, and I don't realize. And like, for example, when I use the term projection, I was well aware of this a long time ago, because it's very hard to imagine something when someone's activities, unless you have that in yourself. I was fortunate to be with a man for a third of a century, my dear late husband, Harold Rosen, who had a very different brain than I did. But we respected and liked each other. And so, for example, I was always ambitious. He just loved to invent things. He had like 100 patents. He's a brilliant, brilliant engineer. Just brilliant. I learned so much from him. But anyway, so we'd be reading and discussing some article or something, and he would not, I'd say, that person, they're just trying to maneuver this or trying to maneuver that, and he wouldn't see it. And I thought, because his brain doesn't work that way. My brain does. And so that's what I mean by projection. If your brain works a certain way, then sometimes you will project that onto someone else. Now, projection is very different than empathy. Empathy is if you see someone crying and you feel empathetic to their grief or whatever's bothering them because they are demonstrating it. But if they're not demonstrating it, like for example with President Trump, I would not say, oh, this must be really hard. Until he shows it's hard, I think then we're projecting. Because all of us could not do what he does. I mean, it's amazing what he does. Okay, so that is what I mean by projecting. So it's easy to say, oh man, he must be miserable. This must be upsetting. Well, if he ever shows that he's miserable or he's clearly upset, then that's empathy. That's sympathy, empathy. That's different than projection. And it's really, really interesting that the Democrats, so when someone accuses someone, and of course this doesn't apply in every case, like if you saw somebody murdering somebody and you project that they're going to murder another person, well, that's a different thing. But I'm talking about getting inside someone's head and thinking that you know how it works. If you don't have that in your own head, you almost can't do it. It's like literally not possible because you have to know how that way of thinking is. So the Democrats, with their accusations on President Trump, they're just revealing themselves. You know, it's pretty fascinating to watch. So anyway, back to Martin's suggestion that I talk about more ways we can present our point of view. Okay. The first one, the rule I have, is never, ever attack. Because if you attack the person, they immediately put a barrier up. And they don't want to hear it anymore. Like for me, I hate if somebody says, oh, you're stupid. That's stupid. Okay. I mean, Scott Adams said that about some climate change argument. And I just couldn't listen to him for a while. Just, that was it, done. But now I'll listen to him again because he's interesting. So, but you'll never win an argument that way, never, ever. And when I think about how I changed my viewpoint over time, part of it was the people. I'm going to say something I'm very ashamed of now. It's probably 10 years ago. There was a guy at the gym, kind of a quiet, dignified guy that I knew from my yoga class that I took there. And I walked by one time when he was on like the elliptical or the treadmill, and he had Fox News on. And I said, you watch Fox News? Like, really? And he quietly said, I like Fox News. And then I just walked away. But I am so ashamed of that. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you now, but I think it's a value because his dignified reply. I mean, what if he'd started arguing with me? Well, who the hell do you think you are? Blah, 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 blah. Wouldn't do anything. But I have looked for that guy at the gym. He's not there anymore. I so want to apologize to him. So want to apologize to him. That was so wrong. But what shamed me and stayed with me was his dignified response. So I wonder if somebody's ranting and raving about Trump. One of the things I find, it's very easy to say, you know, in the circles that I move in, just say, I'm a conservative. You don't even have to address the issue of President Trump. In some circles that might not. But I noticed that that's kind of okay to say that. It's safe to say that. But say it. Just say it in a dignified way with conviction. I'm a conservative. And that kind of shuts people up. And for some of them, it might shame them. I'm not saying it will, but it certainly worked on me. Because I found that, at the beach, there was a whole bunch of us there one day. And let me tell you, there's one issue that unites everybody, even the hardcore leftists. They all hate the homeless issue, all of them. There was nobody defending it. I was like, wow, okay, this is an issue that can work for conservatives in California. But then one of the guy who was like, they shouldn't be able to come into California unless they have a job. And I'm like, what? I mean, what are you going to do? We don't have barriers between states like that. So he was advocating some pretty weird stuff. But then he got into a discussion about wealth taxes and social. I said, you're a socialist. That's probably not a good way to do it. But I did get him because he said, he was complaining. I said, so you want the government deciding all that? He goes, well, the government's the people. And I said, really? Like, what planet are you on? It doesn't work that way. So I think that's another good argument, to just say something like, really? And remember, government bureaucrat does not have a good connotation in people's minds. So say, really? You want government bureaucrats deciding that? And, because they have some magical kind of thinking that the government, he said, well, we're the government. I said, really? And I could tell I got to him. This lady was saying, we should be able to have discussions without, getting in arguments. But whatever. So, saying you're conservative, that you like freedom, don't you like new businesses? Don't you like this? Do you want the government deciding that? I actually think that works with most people. The other point I'd like to make is, and this is what I do in these videos, just say what you think and you feel, because nobody can argue with that. And the other thing I do, and this applies to social media and other things, is don't waste your time with people whose mind is made up. Really made up. They're hardcore. I don't understand getting in arguments with people like some people do on Twitter or anything else. Like, why? Just don't engage. That's my rule. Don't engage. One of my problems is if I do engage or I read a view, I have a hard time shutting my brain off. It just goes in these little, it gets obsessing with the answer, what I want to say. So the way I do that is I just don't read it. I just don't engage. Just don't engage. Because there's plenty of people who have heard certain things, who kind of think certain things, and they're actually persuadable, particularly if they like you. And that brings me to another point. Always be nice. Establish first that you are a likable person. Because if they don't know you first, if they haven't formed an opinion of you, then it's too easy to put you in a box. So as many of you know, I have a lot of activities at Caltech. And the people that interact with me, they know that I love science. They know that I'm excited about scientific advances and this and that. I'm pretty knowledgeable on most of them because I do my homework. So if I express skepticism about the whole climate change stuff, they can't put me in a weird box. they think, well, she's just not as worried about it, or whatever. It works better. So one of the things I want to say is I've read a lot of biographies. I always have enjoyed. Biographies are a great way to learn history. And throughout my life, I've read a ton of biographies. And particularly since I was so ambitious, I like to read biographies of successful people. And one of the things that I noticed was that people often, because they didn't know the future, what the future would hold, they would get very, very discouraged. And you almost wish you could go back in time and say, it's going to be okay. Trust me, it's going to be okay. So as we look to the challenges of our time today, and really these are not serious challenges. They're mental illness challenges. We're going to win because we're on the side of self-empowerment, healthy mental functioning. We'll win, okay? They'll go too far. They're like kids with temper tantrums. So that's one of my goals here in making these videos, is to empower you, empower ourselves, so that we're nimble, we stay strong, because life is about change. And so you've got to see that things change, and then try to figure out, how do we make that work for us? Think about newspapers, magazines, organizations. I got a thing from the ACLU. Now, the ACLU used to just be about civil rights. It was literally about impeaching President Trump. So the ACLU is meaningless, okay? What does it have to do with anything? It's really kind of pathetic. I still get these. Like, there's going to be a women's march, and it's like, what's the point? What are you trying to do? Just to read these things is pretty amazing. I'm on all these lists now. From my previous life. Newspapers. New York Times used to be something people would read and discuss. I lost it. Look at CNN. Oh my God, it's like a joke. So we're coming up with our own. I just did a VIP subscription to Town Hall Daily. I like that. Town Hall Daily, I've been reading I get like their daily update. I like Katie Pavlich and some of the others. Very good. But let's not worry too much about the young people. If you look back in history, there were some really bad times. Now, when I say don't worry, that does not mean be passive about this. Please, don't misunderstand me. We need to take action. We need to get out there, vote, organize, whatever. You need to do it. But one of the things I've noticed about some young people, oh my gosh, it's 34 minutes already, and I haven't even finished all the things I wanted to say. But here's the thing. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to have an experiment to do this once a week. Oh man, I had some other stuff I wanted to say. But I don't want to make this too long. This kind of was rambling, but I hope to do another one next Saturday, and we'll see how this goes. And let's all stay strong, stay nimble, and Merry Christmas. Bye now.